Rocket Stone Miners, I'm your host Get Good Fox, and welcome to the Deep Dive, an elite deep dive walkthrough guide for the week of May 4th through May 10th. I've already been through both of the dives, so I'm going to show you what I did to overcome them and help try to guide you away from some of the pitfalls that you might encounter. First we'll do the deep dive, then the elite deep dive, then I'll wrap things up with who I think are the MVP dwarves for both of the dives. Remember, if you'd like to see me playing live, check me out on Thursdays at Get Good Fox on Twitch. And overall, I would say that these dives are probably maybe a little easier than average to no harder than just average, so that's either good news or bad news, depending on what amount of challenge you're looking for. But let's go ahead and get started with the regular deep dive. So our deep dive is going to occur in these salt pits, which I would say is a pretty good biome. I think it works more in the dwarves' favor. The only downside to it is that you will have the coronar younglings here, not the fully grown adult ones, just the baby ones. They're not that big of a deal. They're mainly just an annoyance. So overall, a great biome. Mission 1 has a difficulty of hazard 3. You're going to be collecting 4 alien eggs. One of them that you pull will generate a swarm. You'll also have to collect 150 morkite. But there's a twist. Mutator, in effect, it is regenerative bugs. What this does is cause bugs to heal back all the way up to full health if you don't fully kill them off. But the catch is that it also applies to Steve. So if you have the Beastmaster perk, it can be really fun here because anytime Steve escapes combat, he'll heal right back up to full health. And overall, I would say this should be a pretty smooth mission. I do recommend taking Beastmaster. I'm not saying it's a humongous advantage, but it's pretty fun to see Steve just regenerate back up to full. As long as you make sure that you kill your bugs completely and don't leave them partially dead, it shouldn't be a thing. On to mission 2 though, which is going to raise the difficulty up to hazard 3.5. This is probably the hardest mission of the standard deep dive. You're going to be killing 2 dreadnoughts, the Hive Guard and the twins, and you're going to have to recover a black box. If you've never done a black box before, it's just like doing the salvage operation. You just have to fix up the black box and stay within the green zone until you capture it. Nothing to it. The mutator for this mission is Exploder Infestation. You're going to be attacked by a frequent squad of exploders, and they will attack throughout the whole experience, including during the bosses and including during the black box, which could cause a problem. My main advice here is because you have to take on bosses, bring anti-boss weapons from the very beginning. This is going to be stuff that either damages the boss through their armor or does something to slow the boss down. That makes the boss very easy to kill, even if you don't have a really good overclock that's just going to own the boss. So examples would include the corrosive sludge pump with the Colette wave cooker, using specifically the contagion transmitter on the cooker. Another example would be the shard diffractor with the dazzler module. These are all weapons that will do damage to the boss even if you don't hit their weak point, and they slow the boss down. If you make the boss slow, they are extremely vulnerable and easy to kill. My only other tip on the bosses would be on the twins. Try to shoot them evenly, try to reduce their health evenly, because the way their healing mechanic works is when they heal, the twin that has lower health heals to catch up to the twin with higher health. So if you damage them evenly, they will barely heal at all. And remember, during the black box, if you want to, feel free to call in some ammo. Call it close enough to the black box so you don't actually have to get outside of the capture zone. And if you brought any defensive type items like your turrets, landmines, lures, gonna make the black box a breeze. And finally, mission 3 difficulty stays at hazard 3.5. You're gonna be collecting 7 quarks and recovering 1 more black box. So this is a point extraction mission, and that means it is nice to try to complete it sooner rather than later, because the enemy spawns do eventually become unlimited till the area is completely crawling with bugs. To that end, the first thing you should do is recover the black box as soon as possible. Deploy all of your ammo pods and save 1 for the black box, as in just put it right next to the box so that you can reload and capture at the same time. You want to do that because in the beginning of the point extraction, the enemies are very slow, so plenty of time to capture the black box. But if you do it later, you'll have to fight the enemies that spawn because of the black box, plus the enemies that are spawned by the point extraction mission itself, plus it's also ramping up. The other thing to know is that you're in kind of like a pit with a bunch of ledges, so if you are a gunner or a driller, then you're going to want to do things to help the other dwarves navigate the area. Zip lines are going to be great here. Zip lines are great for acquiring quarks. Same with drilling tunnels so that people can take them. Some of the quarks will be in the pit, some of the quarks will be in some of the side tunnels, so be on the lookout for them. And once again, if you've got a lot of ammo, just fire some zip lines and grab some more ammo, fire some more zip lines, even if it is overloading your ammo, even if you're wasting some ammo, just shoot out those zip lines, get the quarks, and get out of there. But now it's time to move into the Elite Deep Dive to recover another 3 Matrix cores. Our Elite Deep Dive occurs in the Glacial Strata, which is probably a good thing. Despite the blizzards and the slipping and sliding, I do think it is overall a good biome to be in. Mission 1 has a difficulty of hazard 4.5. You'll be collecting 225 Morkite, and you gotta repair 2 mini mules. That's a good thing though, because mini mules are more nitra. Once you repair them, you get the nitra that's inside of them. There's also a mutator in effect, which is Elite Threat. This will cause some enemies to be considered elite. You can see them very easily because they glow with energy and they are bigger. They do more damage, they move faster, they have more health. They can be a bit of a danger, though most of them are going to probably be the Ice Praetorians, which are really not that big of a deal. Overall, my main tip here is that this is a pretty long mission, but it is definitely worth it to explore the cave fully for nitra. So make sure you are looking for the nitra. You are gonna need it for the 3rd mission in the Elite Deep Dive. It shouldn't be too intense. There are gonna be a lot of these Elite Praetorians, but a good weapon like the Shard Diffractor with the Dazzler module zaps it, does a lot of damage, and it slows it down. Basically treat it like a boss type enemy, slow it down, blow it away, should be a problem. On to mission 2 though. This could be a troublesome mission. There is a tricky part in it, so listen up. Difficulty hazard 5. Your objectives will be to protect the drill dozer. You'll need to refuel it once. You'll also need to get 2 alien eggs. One of the eggs will generate a swarm. There's a mutator in effect, which is low oxygen. What that means is that you have an oxygen tank that lasts 1 minute, and if it unfills completely, then you'll rapidly take damage and die, but you can refill your oxygen at either the drill dozer, your mule, or any of the ammo pods that you summon in. So this mission has a tricky part, but if you're ready for it, it won't be a big deal. First thing to note is that oxygen can almost be ignored because, you're going to be with the drill all the time, so oxygen, not a problem. The real big deal is as you're escorting the drill and the drill is tunneling through the ice, you will tunnel into different chambers. When you get into the chamber, there are pre-spawned enemies there, and you can get attacked from 3 directions. The first direction is bugs chasing after the drill through the tunnel it creates. The second direction is from the air when netocytes, those electrical jellyfish, swarm in and start attacking you. Remember, these guys are going to focus on you, the dwarves, rather than the drill itself. And then the third thing is that you're going to find these spitball infectors that are basically perched like artillery cannons to pound your armor convoy, and that could be really, really bad. You might not know what direction they're coming from. They do have an explosive splash, meaning they could hit multiple dwarves. You could have multiple dwarves go down. So when you penetrate through the ice into the new chamber, it might be a good idea to get off of the drill, scatter so you don't get shelled simultaneously, focus on knocking out those infectors. Do that, and then you should find that the difficulty goes way, way down, and it shouldn't be any further problem until you get to the Heartstone itself. During the actual drilling procedure, there are 2 things that make escort super easy. The first thing is a gunner. Any gunner primary weapon just owns the rocks and the beamers, and that's because all the gunner's weapons do a lot of damage, and they don't have to reload very much, so he can mow down a lot of rocks, and they also blow chunks out of the terrain. And since the beamers are basically terrain, if you aim for the tips of the beamer, any of the gunner's primary weapons will chew up the tips and kill the beamers. Then if you've got an engineer, you can set up your turrets, landmines, and just easily hose down all of the bugs. In fact, the gunner should just exclusively destroy the rocks and the beamers, and then everyone else should basically ignore it and focus on the bugs. Just let the gunner do the rocks and the beamers, let everyone else do the bugs, and you'll find that it's basically a joke. Okay, now for the final mission. Hopefully you have accumulated a healthy amount of nitra, because that's going to be very useful here. So, mission 3, difficulty is hazard 5.5. Your objective will be to collect 10 quarks and 150 Morkite. There's a mutator effect, shield disruption, so that means no shielding for all of Mission 3, but in return you take 30% less damage from hostile sources, so that would be bugs in this case, but friendly fire is unaffected and falling damage unaffected. Red Rock Blaster is a really good beer for this mission because it's going to bulk up your health. So the main catch here is that you are in a point extraction and it's hazard 5.5, so you need to try to complete the mission sooner rather than later. I would say you should try to have this mission done before the third swarm hits. The catch, though, is that the terrain isn't particularly cooperative. It's not the worst terrain, but the main thing is that there is a really big chasm, like a deep chasm, and it's also very wide, and there's a lot of resources dotting the perimeter of this chasm. There's also a pillar in the middle of it, and there are resources on the pillar. So you're going to need a way to move the Quarks up and down the chasm very easily. The really big thing here is either going to be having a driller that can drill tunnels so that you can just carry the Quarks up the tunnel, or you're going to need to have a gunner with zip lines so you can just fire zip lines across the chasm, fire zip lines directly to the Quarks, and if you've got an engineer, like if you've got a gunner-engineer combo, you could fire a zip line right to an Quark, shoot a platform right underneath it, just drop down, grab the Quark, and bring it back. This is where the ammo is really important. The ammo does three things. One, it obviously gives you ammo, that should be obvious. The other thing is that it heals you, and you have no shield, so the healing is really vital. In fact, you might even take an ammo pack for the healing. But the third thing is that it also reloads your support weapons. So if you've got a gunner, just fire out as many of those zip lines to connect to those Quarks as you can, grab an ammo pack, fire more zip lines, grab an ammo pack, fire those zip lines. So if you banked up your Nitra, this last mission shouldn't be that difficult because you should easily be able to connect the cave together through zip lines. And like I said, if you brought an engineer who's also very good at the escort mission, you should be able to place a nice platform underneath each of those zip lines, and that'll allow you to very excessively recover the Quarks and the Morkite. When the bugs do attack, though, when you get a real swarm, you definitely need to drop what you're doing, come together. Do not blow it at the very end by underestimating the bugs. The bugs shouldn't have too many tricks left up their sleeve unless you just get like a really unlucky spawn, like a bulk detonator. I didn't get anything like that, though. I completed the third deep dive after the second swarm, and I think if you focus on that kind of a benchmark, and like I say, stay objective focused, grab the resources and get out, you should be able to do it okay. Right, so let's go ahead and wrap things up with my Dwarf MVP recommendations for the deep dive and the elite deep dive. Starting with the standard deep dive, I'm going to say the engineer and the driller are the MVPs here, and that's because it's mostly a boss/defensive deep dive, and the engineer is really good at defending with turrets, with lures, with landmines, and the engineer is really good against bosses if you have that shard diffractor with the Dazzler module, because it does damage through their armor and slows them down. On the other hand, the driller obliterates bosses because it cripples their movement speed. Once the boss is slow, it's almost helpless. Use that corrosive sludge pump with the wave cooker using the contagion transmitter, combine the effects together, and it just gets super slow. The driller is also really good at recovering the Quarks in the point extraction phase. Now for the elite deep dive, I'm going to recommend engineer and gunner, and that's because there's a lot of defensive things going around, but at the same time there aren't really any bosses unless you get unlucky with some of the spawns. So the engineer is great for defense, as I said. He's going to be super good in the escort. Get your turrets up, get your landmines up, and you're going to be able to shred the bugs while the gunner focuses on the rocks and the beamers. He's also going to be really good in the point extraction. Once again, great synergy with the gunner because the gunner can fire a zip line at an Quark and then you can shoot a platform underneath it. It's going to be great there. Plus, the combat can be intense on Hazard 5.5, so having those turrets are going to be really good, just great supplemental gunfire. So engineer is super good. Now you've also got gunner, and I kind of explained why the gunner is good. The gunner is going to have those extremely valuable zip lines so that you can just get those Quarks quickly, combine them with the platforms. The gunner also can save a mistake or two. Like if somebody goes down, gunner just throw a shield on them and just revive them. The gunner is able to allow you to reload. If you got an ammo pod, you need ammo, throw the shield on the ammo pod, bam, people can get their ammo, no problem at all. And once again, the gunner is just going to own the rocks and the beamers because he's got so much ammo, doesn't have to reload too frequently, and his weapon does a ton of damage. Remember to aim at the tips of the beamers, blast them away, doesn't matter what primary you use, all the primaries will get the job done. And this setup, I think, will definitely punch Elite Deep Dive's ticket. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully this helps you get your Matrix cores. Let me know what you did to overcome the deep dives in the comment section. If you'd like to see me tackling the Elite Deep Dive and the Standard Deep Dive live, check me out on Thursdays at GetGoodFox on Twitch. And of course, be tuned in for another guide coming out next week on Friday for next week's Deep Dive and Elite Deep Dive walkthrough strategy guide. Till next time though, dwarves, remember to rock and stone. Like the video if it was entertaining. Subscribe for future Deep Rock Galactic content. Of course, remember though at the end of the day that you don't have to be good to get good.